If you're hanging around for just a little bit after the second hour lunch, you're more than welcome to join us for those child dedications. This wonderful young woman to my left here is Grace Carnifex. Now, if you don't know Grace is one of our students, and she just came through a little bit of a crazy pain time. So Don wanted me to tell you this because it's a really cool story that Grace has been going through for the last couple of years with thoracic outlet syndrome. I don't know if you know what that is. Is that what that's called? Okay, good answer. And Grace has been going through this thing for the last several years, and it's been just a crazy, crazy time. But it's cool to hear her testimony about how God has worked through it. So I'm not going to let her talk now because we don't have time for that. But I want you to ask her. I want you to ask her about how God has shown Himself big and mighty in her life over the last 2 years. All right, Grace. Now that I've totally thrown you off, you're going to give us our first announcement.
So if you look under or on your seat, or you might be sitting on it, there's a white response card. You can fill it out, tell us that you're here, any prayers that you have, drop it off in the offering as it comes, and just let us know you're here so we can know how to pray for you and just, yeah.
Good. All right, so one of those things that we talked about was prayer, and tonight at 6 o'clock, you're going to have an opportunity to join us for our church-wide prayer meeting, and we do this every couple of months. It's an opportunity to pray with the others, but what's really cool about tonight is that there is a 4-beat prayer thing. Now, I tried to do it earlier in music, and it just went terrible, and Don was like, that's not at all how you do it. And so, here's what I'm going to tell you. It has to do with the Lord's Prayer in ways that you move your arm, just like you're conducting music. And it's really a cool way to remember how to pray, and a cool way to think about how to pray. It's a great way to teach kids as well. So I really encourage you to come tonight at 6 o'clock. It'll be less than an hour, and join us in prayer tonight. You're up.
So we're going to South Africa this summer for the youth mission trip, and we are currently raising money. So all throughout the month of March, you can drop off anything you don't want because we want it, because we're having a garage sale in April. So you can drop it off at a location. Wiley, you can look in the bulletin for more information on that, or text John.
Everybody give Grace a round of applause. Yes, if we're going to South Africa, we need your stuff. We've already filled the storage unit, so we're going to figure that out. This week, we may go get a bigger storage unit. It's going to be exciting. You have underneath one of your seats today is a special piece of paper that says winner. Now, there's a special prize for the person who finds this piece of paper. You may not actually be sitting there, but if you find this piece of paper underneath your seat, I want you to bring it up to me. Bring it up to me. Who has the piece of paper that's a winner? Oh, Johnny Barton. All right, come here, Johnny. Woo! Now, people don't know what they're winning, but they're nervous when it's me. But here's the deal is, Johnny, you are my favorite place in the world. Oh, hi, Austin. Okay. I'm right here, Austin. Yeah, you both win. So, my favorite place to eat is where God Himself resides at Chick-fil-A. And so, Johnny, I've got this gift card for you, but the trick is, because we don't just play things normal, you have to actually give this gift card to someone else. And it cannot be your wife sitting next to you, because that's not fair. So who do you want to give this gift card? They can be little. So you give this gift card to somebody else in the service today, whoever you want. Right now. Who wants Chick-fil-A? Oh, man. So, there's not that much money for Thomas, I promise. She just took it from you. Okay, that's good. Because Osland was ready for this and her dad trained her, I'm going to give you another one, Johnny. You can take Sherry and go get you a milkshake with that. So thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Osland, for coming up. And I'll hide this in the second hour. Thanks, Osland. All right. Is anybody confused yet? Right? It's different. I told you it's very different today. So today I get the opportunity to preach. Jeff is still out of town. He's in Myanmar. He's actually headed back today. He'll be back tonight. So he has begun the long journey back. And so be praying for him. He will share more about his trip next week. So make sure that you're here. It's always exciting to see what God has done. If you've been following on Facebook and trying to read between the lines, you've seen a little bit of what all is going on in Myanmar. And so I encourage you to be here next week to hear about it. When I was 16 years old, I knew that I wanted to coach. You'll notice my jersey, my girls' soccer team that we have. But when I was 16 years old, I knew that I wanted to coach. And about a decade and a half later, about 17 years later, I got my first opportunity to coach. And last winter, I got to coach a team called the Crushers. You're going to see a picture up here of this little group of 4- and 5-year-old boys and girls that I got to coach this pre-K soccer team. And here's the deal. If you know me, I love sports. I'm very passionate about sports. And so when the opportunity came, time for me to coach, I was ready to go. I was ready. The first practice was here, and I was ready. I had my cones. I had my whistle to, get the kids to obey me. I had just everything ready. I had watched all sorts of drill videos. Like, I knew what I was doing. I had the whole practice scheduled out so that we could achieve lots of different tasks, and we could suddenly become little professional soccer players. And it was just glorious in my mind, and I was completely ready to go. I had everything that I needed to be a success. In fact, we practiced right here in the church. I took out the two middle section of chairs, and we were ready to practice right here in the church. And I can remember that when kids started showing up, I was greeting the kids, and I only knew there's a couple of our church kids that are on that team, and I knew those kids, but I didn't know all of them. And so I'm greeting the kids, and I'm meeting the parents, and I'm doing my pastoral thing, and hi, how are you doing? Like, getting every detail about their life, and just really beginning to build relationships. And I'm excited, right? Practice is about to begin. I'm excited. I get the kids all circled up together. We introduce each other, and then it's time for the first drill. And suddenly I realized I was a little bit in over my head, because out of nowhere I have boys. Now, if you know anything about soccer, there's essentially one rule: don't touch the ball with your hands. All right? There's no goalie in 4- and 5-year-olds. Don't touch the ball with your hands. Well, the very first drill, I had 2 or 3 boys who were running around throwing the ball as hard as they can towards a goal. That didn't go well. I had girls running across the stage, across the thing, and these parents are just looking at me going, I'm not touching them. This is my free time. I'm out. And I can just remember being like, well, this isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. This isn't exactly going as I thought it was going to go. Parents were watching me, and I felt like I was completely failing. Fast forward a week or two, and we get to the season, and it was a long season for the Crushers. We lost our first 5 games. Not only that, but we lost one game 20-0. Now, 20 seems like a high number. What's worse is that we scored 0. All right, some of y'all were there. It was rough, and it was a rough beginning to the season, and it was rough because I just constantly felt like I was failing. Right, is that I constantly was struggling, and that we at one point we were running a drill here in the church, and I had this boy Frankie who's right over here on the left on the front row, and he was running this drill, and he was doing great. He's a passionate kid, loves the game. He was running this drill. He's got his head down, and suddenly, boom! He runs into that pillar right over there, right on the side of the wall. I thought I knocked a 5-year-old out, y'all. Like, when you look at failure, this was me failing as a coach, and I was struggling, and we rebounded a little bit at the end of the year. We won some games. We played teams that had kids who had never played like we had, and it slowly kind of ended on a positive note. But if you looked at the season as a whole, you would have thought that I had completely failed as a coach, because I had lost a lot of games, and we had not been close at all, right? If I was a professional coach, I certainly would have been fired. But the cool part is that as I got through the season and I struggled with success and failure and these different things, I remembered the point of why I got into coaching, of why I wanted to do it. And for me, if you looked at it, you would have said, okay, well, it might have been a failure to lose all these games and to have crazy practices where you're not sure what kids are actually paying attention or doing what they're supposed to be doing. And it would have seemed like a failure, but for me, what was the most important thing was that kids learned to have fun in the game. And so when we got to the end of the season, I had a couple of parents who mentioned just how much their kids loved soccer that season. And I was like, we were terrible, right? But they loved the game, and my job as a coach then was a success, because my job that season was not to suddenly develop them into incredible professional soccer players. They weren't going to be that good right away. My goal was to make them a little bit better at the very least, and they all did that. And then my goal was to let them have fun. And let them enjoy the game. It's something that I love. Soccer is my favorite sport. It's something that I'm passionate about. I wanted them to have a sense of that, to have a joy. And so when I hear from parents that they loved the season and they had a lot of fun and they came away with joy, and some of the kids continued to play the next season because they had so much fun, then that to me was a success. That to me felt like that I had succeeded with my team. That meant to me that I had succeeded as a coach. And today, in the second service, as we celebrate families with this child dedication, as we take time to look at what it means to be a parent and what it means to be a coach, I wanted to talk to you about coaching in your own life, in your own family. Talk to you about what it looks like when you coach. Now, you may say, John, look, I don't have kids. Don't check out on me yet. Don't check out on me yet, because the cool part is that you don't have to have kids to be a coach. You may be a young single adult, you may be a student, you may be a child, you may just be someone who never had kids. That's cool, because there's still opportunities for you to coach. In the YouVersion notes, I had this study from Cornell University. It was fascinating about the influence that we can have on people. Random people, not even people you know, but random people in the mall. I could talk about this thing for a little bit, but I'm not going to. I want to encourage you to read it. But the whole point of that research was that everybody has the opportunity to influence somebody. And it didn't matter whether they knew the person or not. Strangers, they had an opportunity to influence somebody if they opened their in a conversation. And so the thing is that you may say, well, I don't have kids, or I don't have little kids in the house anymore, like I don't have an opportunity to be a coach. But in reality, you do, because in everyday life you have opportunities where you interact with people. And so you have an opportunity to be a coach with someone in your life. You see, a coach is anyone who is a leader within a group of people, someone who has an influence on somebody else. That person has an opportunity to be a coach. So because you have influence, because you have an opportunity to be a coach, to lead people around you, what kind of coach are you going to be? And that's what we're going to look at this morning. So if you got your Bibles, turn to Proverbs chapter 3. If you don't have your Bibles, you can check the YouVersion notes or on the screen here. But we're going to be in Proverbs 3, and the title of my lesson is Lessons from the Coach. And here in Proverbs 3, we're in the middle of a section, or right here in the middle of a section where Solomon is writing messages to his son. He's writing these different things to his son, where in chapters 1 through 9, what he wants to do is guide his son in the way that he should live his life. Sometimes it's guiding him towards good things. Sometimes it's helping him avoid bad things. Sometimes it's really focused on, look, this is the way that you should live for God above all other things. Give your life to God and your attention and your focus to godly things above all else. And so he's trying to coach his son. He's trying to help lead his son. And if you think about it, that's essentially what a coach's job is. Is that the coach's job is to prepare the team for what's coming. In Proverbs 1 through 9, that Solomon is beginning to prepare his son for what's coming, and the life that he's facing, and the life that he's going to face. And so he wants to help his son prepare. Now, coaches often teach through drills. They teach through little moments, little activities. And these drills are meant to train the mind and the body to gain reactions, right? To gain situations. The point of a drill is maybe to set a team up for success, to find that open person in the game, to find that open pass, or the thing that they're looking for that will help the team succeed. Or maybe a coach is trying to help a team to avoid failure, right? Is that they're trying to find the weaknesses in the team and go, look, you need to make sure that you cover here because we're going to be left weak in this area. So a coach's job is to help set their team up for success and to help their team avoid failure. And that is what Solomon is going to do with his son. The drills are important if the player and the team are going to succeed. The drills, the practice time is important for the team, for the player to be able to succeed. And so Solomon teaches his son, what can we learn from his message? We're going to start in verses 1 and 2. And it says this. It says, my son, do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments. For the length of days and years of life and peace they will add to you. Now, when we get to these 12 verses, what we're going to see is that they can be broken up into 6 different sections. 6 different drills, 6 different things that Solomon wants to teach his son. Within each one, there's going to be a challenge. There's going to be some sort of task, some sort of goal, some sort of thing to follow. And then once he says that, he's going to show, okay, well, this is the result. This is the motivation. This is what will happen if you follow this task. If you complete this challenge, if you do this, then this is going to be what happens next. And so he's giving his son really practical things to follow. So the challenge in verses 1 and 2 is this, is do not forget but keep my commandments. You ever said that as a parent, right? Don't forget what I'm telling you, but remember it. He's saying, look, son, here's what I'm trying to teach you. What's cool about that is every time he starts out a message to his son, throughout chapters 1 through 9, whenever he starts out a message to his son, he starts out with something similar to this. In 1:8 he says, hear your father's instructions. In 4:1 he says, hear a father's instructions, be attentive. 4:10, hear my son and accept my words. In 4:20 he says, my son, be attentive to my words, incline your ear to my sayings. He's trying to make sure that his son is paying attention. We've all been there as parents or as leaders of people, right? Hey, pay attention, eyes on me, right? I do that to my girls all the time. Hey, I need to see your eyes. Like, I know if I see your eyes, there's at least a slightly bigger chance that you're paying attention to me. And so he's trying to make sure that his son is paying attention. He wants to press the value of taking to heart the things that he's going to teach him. That Solomon knows that what he's about to say is important, so he wants to make sure that his son is hearing it. So why does Solomon want to make sure that his son doesn't forget his teaching? What's the result of his son remembering what he's taught him? The result is that you will have a longer, more peaceful life. Is that he's telling the son, look, you're going to have a longer, more peaceful life if you will listen to what I'm teaching you. Now that's not rocket science, right? If you think about it, if you do dumb things, your life is going to be stressful and possibly short, right? There have been things in my life that I've done and I'm like, I'm glad I survived that, right? Sometimes things in youth ministry go that way. We're like, okay, we're good. I'm glad we all came out of that situation because there was a chance that really wasn't the brightest thing that we could have done. And sometimes when we do dumb things, it causes us to have a more stressful life or to cut our life short, whether it's because of the things we take into our body or the things that we consume or that we do, whatever it might be. When we do things that are foolish, oftentimes it causes stress and will shorten our life. But if we do things that are wise, if we listen to the teachings of Solomon here, that we're going to have peace. And our life isn't going to be as chaotic, and we're going to live a longer life. So live wisely so that you can be at peace and enjoy a longer life. This is what he wants his son to have. This is what we want as parents, right? I want my kids to not struggle. I want them to succeed and to have a long life and to have joy in that life. And so that's what he's trying to tell us. Look, pay attention to what I'm telling you because it's important, because it's going to impact your life. So he goes on in verse 3, he's going to give you some specific things. He says, let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck, write them on the tablets of your heart, so that you will find favor and good success in the sight of God and man. So the challenge here, he says, look, don't let your love be flippant. Don't let it just be a feeling, but love faithfully and consistently. He says, let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Let it not leave you. Let not this unchanging, this unwavering love leave you, but bind it close to who you are. Bind it close to your neck, around the tablet of your heart. He has this picture here of keeping it close to him, that it doesn't leave him. He says, look, love well, love consistently other people. Psalm 136. If you've actually read Psalm 136, throughout the entire chapter, I talked about giving thanks to the Lord, for he is good. And the reason is, in every verse in Psalm 136, it says, for his steadfast love endures forever. For God's steadfast love endures forever. See, our example of this, our example of steadfast love and faithfulness is God himself, right? That in the midst of our ability to live up to God's standard, that God continues to love us. God continues to pour out his love for us. He's continuing to be faithful to us even though we don't deserve it. And the reason that God's faithful to us is because his faithfulness isn't dependent upon us, right? His faithfulness isn't dependent upon who we are or what we can do or can't do. It's dependent upon his character and who he is. And so when Solomon is encouraging his son to love well, to have a steadfast love, an unwavering and unchanging love, to be faithful, he's saying, look, don't let it be dependent upon other people. Let it be who you are. Let it be a defining character of who you are. Just as God is unchanging and unwavering, we should be the same. That's how we should love others as well. So what's the result when we do that? The result is this, that we find favor and a good reputation before God and man. It sounds nice, doesn't it? Right? So to have other people look at you and just have a good opinion of who you are. And it makes sense. We want to trust those who are honest and authentic. We want to trust those who are faithful, who are unchanging and unwavering, who we know what we're going to get, right? We know that they're not going to have a random high or a random low. Like, we know what we're going to get when we have a conversation with you, when we disappoint you, when we do something great. We know what we're going to get. Those are the kind of people that we want to be around, so why not be that ourselves? Be unchanging, be steadfast in our love and our faithfulness. You should treat others well even when they don't deserve it, because God treated you well when you didn't deserve it. And this is something I try and teach our students all the time. Because this will change your life. If you put this into place, if you write this on your heart, that this is what will change your life, because I treat others well because it's the way that God treated us. I didn't deserve God's love. Like, I didn't do anything to earn my salvation, but yet God, in the midst of all of it, chose to send His Son to die on my behalf. Man, the least I could do is try and live that out for other people. So love well to others. Then we get to verses 5 and 6, and you've heard these before. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. The challenge we see in verse 5 in the beginning part of verse 6 is to completely trust in God and God alone. He's trying to challenge His son to go, look, I want you to completely trust in God and God alone. Don't trust in your own understanding, in your own ways. I want you to completely trust in God and God alone. Look at some of the words that Solomon uses. He uses this word trust, which is to completely put yourself at the mercy of someone else. To completely put your faith at the mercy of someone else. To lean on someone, to lean on something is to completely, not just, like this, but to completely, this table is really shady, right? But to completely lean on it so that if it falls, I'm going down. It's sliding right now, right? If it falls, if you think about it, it's like walking with a cane. If you've ever been injured or seen someone who has to walk with a cane, that they do that, they lean on that cane for support. To lean on it means that that's where you're finding the support. He says, in all your ways acknowledge Him. This isn't a way that you look at God and go, hey, God, what's up? Like, like a friendship, like just, hey, how's it going? But it's to know God in an intimate way. It's to know God, to have that close relationship with God. If you think about it, there are people that you know at different levels of your life, right? I have a really close relationship with my brother. At times, we didn't always get along when we were in high school, but now we're best friends. And now that we call each other all the time just to see what's going on, or if we have some exciting news. Like, he's one of the first people I want to call after my wife, right? Why is that? Because I have an intimate relationship with my brother. It is that we have years worth of time spent together, experiences and moments and shared memories, and we have time that we spent getting to know each other and building this relationship. Now, if I meet some stranger on the side of the road, I'm going to have a conversation with them, and I might have a little bit of a conversation about who I am and what I do, but I'm not telling them everything, right? I'm not telling them what my kids are doing or what we're excited about. Like, I'm keeping some of those things private because I don't have a relationship with you. And so as he describes to his son, he says, look, completely trust in God and God alone. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart, with all that you are. Trust in God. Don't lean on your own understanding. Don't support yourself by what you think you know. Because ultimately, you don't know as much as God knows. Right? Ultimately, you don't know as much as God knows. And so, trust in me, or trust in God and God alone. So what's the result? What happens when we do this? What happens when we put our trust in God and God alone? It's simple. We have a straight path and not a crooked one. Is that life then becomes a straighter path and not one that's crooked and not one that struggles. So basically, what happens is when we trust in God, we come to a less difficult road. Now, this doesn't mean that life is going to be easy. It doesn't mean that life is going to be smooth sailing. If you've ever met a Christian that is that way, then I want to meet them. All right. And then again, I used Grace as an example earlier. Grace is as an example that life hasn't been smooth for her the last couple of years. As a Christian, I can tell you stories about times that my life hasn't been smooth, but when I put my trust in God, it's still a straighter path. And if you think about it like this, if you go off into a trail in the woods, and you're out exploring this trail, if you stay on the trail, you're pretty safe, right? It may have hills, it may have bumps, it may have things that you need to do with risk. I was in South Africa a couple of weeks ago as we were prepping for our trip, and I started exploring through the woods at this campsite that we're staying at. And no one knew where I was, so my goal was to not die. All right, I mean that was basically it. But so I'm walking through the woods and I'm checking things out. And they have this trail and some different activities and team building things, and I'm walking through it. It's really cool, and I'm having to, there's times where I have to have a little bit of risk. I have to jump over a creek or try and step over a log or things like that, right? That may not be the easiest thing, but that are still achievable. But if I was to go outside of this trail, who knows what's there to find me, right? There are spider webs everywhere outside of the trail. I don't like spiders very much, right? I'm not going to go outside of that. And so the key is that when I stayed on the path, that I knew that I was safe because that path had been prepared for me. But when I got off the path, is that I didn't know what I was going to experience. But what I was going to experience could have had a little bit of pain. It could have had some poison ivy or had some different things. But I could have had some pain and some struggle that were unnecessary because I got off the path. When we put our trust in God, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be easy, but it means that He's going to be with us. And it means that you're on the plane that He's prepared for you, which is the best place. When we get outside of that, when we begin to lean on our own understanding, that's when we begin to face difficulties that are unnecessary. We have stresses, we have hurts, we have different things that happen in our life because we're not being obedient to God. When we're not trusting in God with all that we are. He goes on in verse 7 and 8, he says, be not wise in your own eyes, fear the Lord and turn away from evil. It will be healing to your flesh and refreshment to your bones. He's challenging his son here that it's not about your standards for wisdom, but God's. Have you ever done something that seemed wise at the time, but was really foolish? Right? Have you ever done something you go like, oh yeah, this is a good idea, and then you get down like, well, that was a terrible idea, right? I can tell you, I was in Acapulco on a mission trip in high school, and we were sharing the gospel. That part of what we were doing, we were getting ready to have a big parade. The cities have a parade, we were a part of it, and so we were going to have this big parade. And so we're sharing the gospel kind of as we wait, and so we're out in groups of 2s or 3s, and I'm sharing the gospel with someone, and this person comes up and says, hey, the group is leaving, we got to go. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm doing this, and this was an adult, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm sharing the gospel. And they're like, no, we got to go, the group is leaving, and we're supposed to go. And I'm like, okay, but I'm 16 and I'm wise, all right? So I'm going to do what God wants me to do and share the gospel. Now, what I realized later was that, no, that's not what God wanted me to do. That was me having a sense of pride in myself and saying, you know what, if I don't share the gospel now with this guy, the Holy Spirit may never have an effect on this person, right? Now, if you ever begin to replace God with yourself, it doesn't go well. And so when we're having this conversation, it gets off into a weird thing of things that had nothing to do with the gospel. And so we get done, we turn around, we go back, and the group is gone. Like completely gone. And at that moment, I realized that I was a little foolish. And so we ended, obviously I'm here, I didn't get stolen, but we ended up back with the group, but I got in trouble with the leaders because they had given me, they had told me what to do, and what would have been wise in that moment is to be obedient to the people who were in charge of me, right? The people who were responsible for me. And yet in that moment I was like, oh, you know what? You say that, but I know what's more wise, right? I know what's wise. I know what I'm doing. I know what God wants me to do. And so I went and did that. And because of that, I caused heartache and I caused stress and I did all these other things. And sometimes we think that we're wise and we think that we lean on our standards for wisdom and not for God's. Wisdom leaves when pride takes over. To me, sometimes this is hard, is that wisdom leaves when pride takes over. That when our pride begins to take over, man, wisdom is out the window. Because those two things don't go hand in hand. We can't look for wisdom from God and be prideful in ourselves and in our own abilities. Is that wisdom leaves when pride takes over. So what's the result? What's the result when we trust in God? When we listen to God's wisdom, what was the result of having a fear and a reverence and honor for the Lord? It's this invigoration and refreshment of our soul. So sometimes in the Bible, when it talks about physical healing, it means physical, but often what it means is talking about an inner physical, like the inside of you, the soul part of you is what it's talking about. And so when Solomon describes this physical body, that what he's really describing is that we are refreshed from the inside. What's cool about this is that if you look at verses 5 to 7, if you were to go back and look at that, they really begin to kind of play off of one another. Verses 5a and 7a are opposites. Verses 5a says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart. And verses 7a, the beginning of verse 7 says, be not wise in your own eyes, right? So look, verse 5a says, trust in God with all that you are. And then verse 7 says, look, but to do that, you cannot be wise in your own eyes. You cannot look at yourself as the wisest. You have to follow God's wisdom. Verse 6, at the beginning of verse 6, they restate each other. And beginning of verse 6 says, in all your ways acknowledge him. And then at the end of verse 7, it says, fear the Lord and turn away from evil. Then in both of those things, they're talking about putting God first. In everything that you are, acknowledge him, have a relationship with him, and fear him. Honor him in such a way that you turn away from evil. So here's something important to take from these verses, is that an appropriate view of yourself and God is the wisest thing that you can have. An appropriate view of yourself and God is the wisest thing that you can have. And here's what I mean by that, is when you go about life humbly, when you go about life thinking that I am not the greatest gift to humankind, right? Is that when you put a proper relation or a proper view of yourself and God, which goes back to what we talked about earlier, that I've done nothing to deserve what God has given me, but he's done it out of his goodness and his graciousness for me. When I have a proper view of my relationship with God, then what that does is that it allows room for wisdom. And so it allows opportunities for me to see God's wisdom and for me to act and to live and to know and to understand that. So an appropriate view of yourself and God is the wisest thing that you can have. We go on to verse 9 and 10. It says, honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all your produce, and then your barns will be filled with plenty and your vats will be bursting with wine. The challenge here that you give to some is, look, give God a portion of what you have. Give God a portion of what you bring in. Look at these key words. He says, the first fruits, the finest choices, the cream of the crop, right? This is the very beginning. Take off the top. Don't give the leftovers, because if you've ever tried to give out of the leftovers, there's never anything left over, right? And so he says, look, give off the top. Give the finest of the finest. Give the choicest of the choices. Give the best of the best to God. And he says honor, and this may be the most challenging thing that we have to do. And if we backtrack, we've seen in verses 5 through 7, or 5 through 8 already, the challenge of honoring God. In verse 5, he tells us to trust in God. He says, trust in God and lean not on your own understanding. And the thing is that it won't always make sense, is that when we follow God, it won't always make sense, but you don't need it to when you trust God. Is that we don't need it to always make sense when you trust God. And so then it gets to verse 6, he says, in all your ways. And so would you say in all your ways includes money? Yes, right? Yes. I know it's uncomfortable, but yes. In all your ways includes money, so you've got to trust in God even when you don't understand it. And in all your ways includes money. He says in verse 7, be wise, not in your own eyes. Sometimes I've tried to trick myself when giving to God and go, you know what, God, I know this is what you say, but I really think what you might mean is I should put some in retirement. I should put some in savings. I should take what is yours and do this with it, because this is wiser to the world. This is what the world tells me I should do, and I should do this first before I give to you. See, what's wise in our eyes isn't necessarily what's wise in God's eyes. In verse 8, it's refreshing to trust in God with your money. It's refreshing to trust in God because it feels great when you give, when you honor and trust God. When you do it applicably, when you do it with an actual moment where you give God something that's difficult, and for most of us in this room, money is difficult because we don't have enough of it. And so when we give to God, man, it's this moment of refreshing relief, right? It's this moment of going, man, God, that felt good to honor and to trust you. And so that's the challenge that he's given to his son here, is to give God a portion of what you bring in. What's the result? He says, then your barns will be filled with plenty and your vats will be bursting with wine. God is going to bless you. Now, I have some extra notes in the U version, part of this, because this verse isn't talking about a like-for-like transaction with God. It's not talking about if I give $20 in the plate, which is coming by later in the service, then tomorrow in my mail I'm going to have 20 or 40 or 60 or 20,000. Like, I don't know how God's going to bless me, but that's not what it's talking about. It's not talking about a like-for-like transaction. It's not talking about something there for the that's how God blesses us. In fact, in the New Testament, in 2 Timothy 3:12, we know that the promise that we have as followers of Christ is that we're going to face persecution, right? Is that we're going to face persecution the more we follow God. So what I want you to get here is that God may not always bless in the way that you think He's going to or in the timing that you want, but God will bless you because He blesses obedience. Because He blesses those who are obedient to Him. So God will bless you if we give a portion to Him. We finish out at verses 11 and 12. It says, my son, do not despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of His reproof, for the Lord reproves him who He loves as the Father, the Son, in whom He delights. He's saying, look, God, look, son, trust in God always, even in discipline. Trust in God always, even when there's discipline. Solomon starts off this message with the message to his son to follow his teaching. Solomon starts off by saying, look, listen to what I'm saying because it's important. Listen to what I'm saying. Don't forget what I'm saying because it's important. But he knows that his son's going to slip up, right? Because we all slip up. Because we've had kids. Our kids sometimes do dumb things. They do foolish things. And so he knows that his son is going to slip up. And in those moments, he wants to remind him not to get upset with God, but to continue to trust God and continue to put his trust in Him. Why is that? We see that in the result. That a deeper trust in God's purpose. The result is that when we are okay with God's discipline, when we don't despise God's discipline, that we begin to develop a deeper trust in God's purpose. A good coach and player relationship, two things happen when there's discipline. Two things happens when discipline is effective. The first thing is that the coach has to have a higher purpose. There has to be something bigger than just his desire to punish that player, that team, right? If the coach has a higher purpose for discipline, then discipline can be effective. And the second thing is that the team, the player, has to respond in the right way. Is they have to trust in that higher purpose. If you've ever played sports, there have been times where you've seen it with a team to where one person does something wrong and everybody has to run, right? One person makes a mistake in a drill or an activity or in a game and everybody has to run. Why does the coach do that? Well, the coach does that because there's a bigger purpose. Yes, he wants perfection in this drill. He wants the success in this drill because he knows that team will succeed when they know how to do what they're doing in this drill. But he also knows that they succeed or fail as a team. And so the message that he's trying to send is, yeah, we want to be better. We don't want to fail, but also we do it as a group. Is that we do it as a team. And now the team then has a choice. And they can say, yeah, whatever. Like, I didn't do it. I'm not running. Right? I'm just going to sit here and wait till everybody else gets done with their lap, right? I'm just going to sit here and hang out, or I'm going to begin to undermine the coach, or maybe I'm just going to completely ignore him and walk off. Right? Those are options, or what's more likely is that the team goes and they run. And they're not happy about it, but they go run a lap together. And the thing is that when they do that, they have shown that they put a trust in their coach. They put a trust in the purpose that he has, in this higher purpose that he's trying to get them to achieve, and the success and failure of the team is. So that's the question for you: is how do you respond to God? Your response to God's discipline shows how much you trust Him. Your response to God's discipline shows how much you trust Him. It shows how much you have put your trust in Him. Do you go, you know what, God, I'm out? Like, just because just because I sin doesn't mean that this should happen. Like, do you put your trust in God even through discipline? So as we close out here, there's 6 drills that Solomon is giving his son to complete. There's 6 drills that ultimately will help his son trust in God more. And so that's my first question to you. As you take this home and you try to apply it, that's my first question to you, is this: how much do you trust in God? How much in your life do you actually trust in God? I can tell you all I want about my soccer skills. I can tell you about my experience. I can try and tell you all these things about me and about soccer. But unless you see evidence of it, then there's not really anything there, right? Unless you see evidence of it, it's not really more than just talk. And so my challenge and my question to you is, how much do you trust God? And then how do you see evidence of that? How do you see evidence of your trust in God? Do you trust God in all these areas except for money, or except with your kids, or except with your future, or your job, or your school, or your college choice, whatever it might be? Do you trust God in all these areas except for something? Or do you put your trust in God? Would people know that you have trust and faith in God because of how your life is? So my second question is this: what kind of coach are you to other people? I started off by telling you that I wanted to coach when I was 16 years old, and the reason is because I remember coaching, and I was coaching this U7 game, or this 7-year-old game, and I can remember this dad who was coaching his team, and he was yelling a lot. Now, if you ever come out to one of my games, I'm a yeller, all right? I'm very excited, I'm very passionate, I'm a loud person. You can hear me on all the fields, right? But this guy does it different than me. What he was doing is he was belittling his team. Is that he was berating them, he was yelling at his team and telling them what they were doing wrong, and yelling at them to get back, and just, you could tell from the tone of his voice that he was upset throughout the entire game. And the person he picked on the most was his own kid. And what I realized as a 16-year-old was, these kids are 7. Like, I'm sorry, but they're not that good yet, all right? Some of them are still picking their nose out on the field. Like, why are we getting to this level? And the thing that I learned at that point was that I knew that I was going to coach my own kids in sports because I wanted them to have someone who encouraged them and who wanted them to know whether they succeeded or failed, that they were loved. Whether they won or they lost, that I was proud of them because they gave all of their effort. I wanted to be the one to coach and to help them, and the reason is because I had seen a bad coach. And so in your life, as you think about the people that you have an influence on and the people that you lead, what kind of coach are you to them? Are you constantly tearing down people and trying to find the negative in situations or the negative in people and thinking that that's what builds them up, or are you building up others in encouragement and in love? You know, God has a lot to complain about me. God has a lot that he can hold against me, but yet in the midst of all of it, he's faithful and he loves me well. What kind of coach are you to other people? The band's going to come up, and I'm going to close this out here in just a second. The thing I want to challenge you with is that a lot of times when we look at people from the Bible, that we aren't encouraged because we see them as perfect. But the cool thing is that we can see very clearly from other parts of the Bible that Solomon wasn't perfect, that he wasn't a perfect coach. His dad, King David, wasn't a perfect coach. That we have examples that you don't have to be perfect just to be a coach. You have to be willing to lead. You have to be willing to lead other people. As a parent, are you willing to lead your kids well? Are you willing to encourage and lift up your kids? Are you willing to lead others, or are you just wanting other people to lead your kids? As a coworker, are you willing to encourage and to lead the new people that are transferred into your department? The new people that are promoted into your group, the new people that have been transferred, and the new hires, are you willing to lead and to coach those people? As a student, are you willing to coach the people in your group? Are you willing to coach and to lead the people that you have an influence on? So the question is are you willing to lead? Coaching is simply leading, and the best coaches lead out of an overflow of passion. They have a passion for what they do, and that comes out of how they lead other people. As a Christian, I hope that your passion for God overflows into how you lead other people. And I hope that it overflows in how you treat other people. Would you pray with me? So I thank you for today, God. I thank you for, Lord, we thank you for Jesus. And we thank you for the fact that in the midst of our brokenness, in the midst of our unperfectness, God, that we, in the midst of our lostness, that you sent your son to die on our behalf. And God, I thank you for that because, Lord, I just pray that it is with that mindset, Lord, that it's not because of us, but because of you, that we will go out and try and lead and coach other people. God, that we will do well in leading our families. God, and that we will seek to lead those around us, to our co-workers or fellow students, or whatever it might be. God, I pray that you would help us to lead those around us. We thank you for all that you do. In Jesus' name.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. for you to stand and shake hands with at least two people and give them a warm welcome, and we're going to jump into some worship.
Morning.
Good.
Good.
All right, now if you'll, thank you. This first song fits so well, I think, with John's second question about coaching. Who are you coaching? The title of the song is called "Pass It On," and it's simply saying, are we going to pass on to the next generation how awesome, how great our God is? And so I trust, that I know God's spoken to you through that good message. And so we're going to continue on and give him praise. It's kind of fun to do this after the message where I get filled up with God, how good he is in his word, and now I get to respond back to him. So let's sing together. Awesome power and your mighty hands. They will tell us is not working. And so before we go on, it's off. I need a battery. So in this, it's dead. Mark, I need a battery. You got a 9-volt battery back there? So would you worship the Lord with your neighbor? Let me just say tonight, here's the 4-beat pattern that John was trying to talk about, right? This is the preparatory beat. Our Father which art in heaven, holy is your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread as we forgive those who trespass trespass against us. Lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the power and glory forever and ever. Amen. So I took conducting in college. So this is a 4-beat pattern. We're doing some of the songs this morning in a 4-beat pattern. How many know what a 4-beat pattern is? Okay, so yeah, we have that. So I really want to invite you. It's got to be 180 degrees from stop. There's some of the songs we're about ready to do. I can't do it without that. Without that in my ear. No technology. John, just worship. Just worship. Thank you for being patient with us on that. So I hope to see tonight. Really, I am watching the clock. The greatest weapon we have would be to come together. We're living in a growingly hostile world to a Judeo-Christian ethic. And we need God to do some things in our society. So I really want to come and pray. Come and pray. I know it's hard. Some of you are nervous. Like, I'm not going. I'm not praying with someone. Nobody prays perfect. It's okay. Just God's looking at your heart. Amen. So this is a new song. Build My Life is what it's called. I can't play with the click in my ear now.
There is
wonderful words out of Proverbs 3 that John gave us. These are the words that allow us not to be shaken. These are the firm foundation words, your words. Lord, we bless you and we praise you. We honor you. In Jesus' name, amen. You may be seated.
All my life you have
It's rich stuff. And his goodness is continuing to run after you this week. Did you know that? It's going to run after you. He's going to remind you of what you heard through John, through Proverbs 3. So have a great week. Let me say a prayer. Lord, just as we go, help us to walk in light of this, your word, that we've heard today. Help us to walk in light of the fact that you are a good Father and your love is running after us. That you're embracing us. Lord, I pray that you would do a marvelous thing through the body called Waterbrook as we leave this place. Give us the joy that comes from you. Allow us to be ready to invite people and to point others to you. We say these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Hey, before you leave, we're going to do an offering. I got you. See? The church isn't going to close down without Jeffrey. We're going to make it. We're going to make it.
All right. You cannot leave until you put something in. Yeah, see, okay, so when the technology goes off, my mind goes, so they're passing it. So we're going to play this song to go out on that. We were going to do one more song, but I'm looking at the clock a little late, so let's play this song that we're going to do. But once the play passes you, you are free to go.